Morant with a running start. Elevate! Oh, it dunks! Oh, my goodness!
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone! Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it! A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant! He hit it! John Morant! Insanity!
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. The All-Star break is over. The Grizzlies' final 26 games begin on Friday night. On this episode, I'm going to look ahead to those final 26 games, plus cover the debate about whether or not the Grizzlies should shut players down. I'm going to look at a realistic trade for the draft pick the Grizzlies might be able to pull off on draft night. Plus, I will talk briefly about Vince Williams Jr. playing in the Rising Stars game. Anyways, before I get to all of that, just a reminder that this Friday, if you're anywhere near Nashville, Tennessee, you should come to Noble's Beer Hall. I will be hosting a Nashville watch party for the Grizzlies and Clippers game. The Grizzlies will be carrying their 2-game win streak into this matchup with the very good Los Angeles Clippers. At Noble's, we will be giving away lots of Grizzlies prizes. There will be $1 off Wiseacre drafts. It will be a lot of fun. It will be your second to last chance to catch a Grizzlies watch party in Nashville. So make plans to join me on Friday night at 7 p.m. at Noble's Beer Hall to watch Grizzlies and Clippers. All right, let's start with the Rising Stars game. Vince Williams Jr., of course, was the injury replacement, taking Dyson Daniels' spot. Vince played a little bit. The game was, honestly, they played harder than the actual All-Stars did on Sunday night. The Rising Stars game had way better defense than the actual NBA All-Star game. But Vince's team Tamika lost in the first round of the Rising Stars Challenge to Team Jalen. Vince played a little bit. He did at least make us, I think, very proud with the steal he got. He ripped the ball away from Chet Holmgren in a move that was so smooth and so cool. It was honestly condescending. It was as if I was playing against my 9-year-old son. Vince just lets Chet go by him, rips the ball away, throws it ahead for an easy assist to Jaden Ivey. Definitely the coolest play Vince made in that game. He also hit a pull-up three-pointer, and that, I think, covers all of Vince Williams Jr.'s highlights from this glorified exhibition. He finished with 3 points, 2 assists, and a rebound. I hope he had a great time. It was good to see the Grizzlies get some recognition, some acknowledgement. Maybe the funniest part of his participation in the Rising Stars game was when he made his three-pointer. One of the on-court microphones caught someone yelling, "Oh my God," as if they were surprised he made his shot. A little bit of trash talk, I assumed, from one of his opponents. But Vince did not play very much. The Grizzlies were not a big part of All-Star Weekend, but hopefully you caught that. If you didn't catch it, it's available on League Pass. I watched the condensed version. It took me 12 minutes. But now let's look forward to the final 26 games of this season. And, the big topics for the Grizzlies over these final 26 games are going to be, to tank or not. That is going to be a question that the fan base participates in. And also tied into that is whether or not you shut guys down, whether you let Brandon Clark actually come back and play. By the way, Brandon Clark was seen on social media. I don't know if he posted it or Jaren posted it, but Jaren and Brandon were working out in a gym together over the All-Star break at Turks and Caicos. So on vacation in the Caribbean, those guys were in a gym, and it's always good, of course, to see Brandon Clark as he returns from that injury, doing basketball stuff. But the question among us fans is, should Brandon Clark come back, and should Marcus Smart and Desmond Bane come back? Now, the initial injury reports for Marcus Smart and Desmond Bane said they'd each be reevaluated after 6 weeks. Those 6 weeks are up in the next 7 days. However, Zach Kleiman, after the trade deadline, gave us maybe some mixed messages. He said, one, there's no timetable for these guys. He also said the team's record will not influence whether or not they bring guys back or not. He also said that some guys might be shut down or some guys might not come back. You might not see some guys again this year. So, I mean, he's either talking about Marcus or Desmond or Brandon. I mean, is he talking about Jake LaRavia? Like, Jake LaRavia was supposed to be back. I don't know. But I think it's useful as a fan base or as me as a Grizzlies podcaster, hopefully trying to influence the fan base to assess where the Grizzlies are in the tankathon race. And I think one of the cool things, and we've talked about this a while, but it keeps being cemented. One of the great things about where the Grizzlies are right now in the standings is they can't move very far. And if you're a person who thinks we should tank it out, we should not play any of our good players anymore, we maybe let Jaren get up to 65 games played and hopefully he sneaks onto like second team all defense. But beyond that, we need to shut everybody down, just play the young guys and try to lose as much as possible. Here's why that's a bad idea. I mean, the shutting guys down, that's a debatable idea. But here's why trying to lose every one of your games, I think, is a bad idea. And this does not go into it's bad for habits or, it is bad for your culture or something. I mean, I honestly sort of believe that. Like, one of my main arguments for wanting to see Desmond Bane come back and Marcus Smart come back is I think it's super important. And I don't have facts to back this up. There's no data that supports this argument. But my opinion is that I think it would be much better for Gigi Jackson and Vince Williams Jr. to play alongside Marcus and Desmond, and also to play in games that matter, to play in games that have stakes. My opinion is their development would be helped by playing in pressure situations. If the game has no stakes, I don't know how much they're actually getting better. If Gigi Jackson can shoot the ball 27 times in a game, I don't know if that actually helps him. I think more helpful would be playing in a game where, I don't know, you're favored to win and you have a big lead and then that lead goes away and all of a sudden you feel that pressure of like, oh no, are we going to blow this? I would rather see Vince and Gigi and whoever else, Zaire or Jake LaRavia, get those reps. Get reps in games that have stakes. But even if you ignore all that, even if you just say the way the NBA is set up, you're supposed to maximize your spot in the lottery standings and ending up with the best pick possible is what your goal should be. Here's why I think trying to lose as much as possible is a bad idea. It goes back to the fact that we're stuck where we are in the standings. Here's an example, just to spell it out for you. I'm going to win you over to my perspective. Let's say the Grizzlies really shut everybody down and have a horrible final 26 games. Let's say they go 4-22, which frankly is what I imagine to be the worst possible result over 26 games that you could pull off. If the Grizzlies go 4-22 in their final 26 games, to pass the Hornets, like to catch the Hornets to have the fourth worst record, the Hornets would have to win 12 more games. The Hornets would need to go 12-16 after the All-Star break for the Grizzlies to pass them if the Grizzlies went 4-22. Do you realize how unlikely that is? Even if you pulled off going 4-22, you would need the Hornets to win 12 more times. And I know the Hornets are undefeated since they picked up Trey Mann. But I don't think the Hornets are going to go 12-16. Like, what if the Hornets go 10-18? That's even winning a lot of games for a team that's been horrible this year. If the Hornets don't shut it down and for whatever reason go 10-18 in their final 28, you'd have to go 2-24 to catch them. I say all that to let you know we can't catch them. Now, we could maybe catch the Trailblazers, but even that, it's unlikely. Let's do the same exercise for the Trailblazers. Let's say we go 4-22, which means our games are disgusting, which means we have no fun watching them, which means FedEx Forum is empty, it means my download numbers are terrible. If the Grizzlies go 4-22, and you have to explain to somebody why losing is good, who's not having any fun, a season ticket holder who's losing tons of money trying to like sell their tickets or something. Even if you did that, you would need the Trailblazers to win 10 more games. They would need to go 10-18 over their final 28. I don't think the Trailblazers are going to go 10-18 down the stretch. So, on the one side, losing out, you're not gaining anything. You're barely gaining anything. Like, you might point out that like we're neck and neck with Toronto right now. Yes, I think we can lose enough to have the 6th worst record. We currently have the 7th worst record because of our 2-game win streak and Toronto's 3-game losing streak. But like, even if we finish 6th or 7th, those things are very similar. I assume we're going to finish 6th. But we can't catch the 5th worst. We definitely can't catch the 4th worst. So the flip side of that, what if we win tons of games? What if Desmond Bane comes back? What if Marcus Smart comes back? What if Gigi Jackson keeps getting better and better and better? What if we unveil Brandon Clark near the end of the year? What if somehow over our final 26 games, we go like 16-10 or 17-9? Well, guess what? We're still probably not going to catch anybody. Like, even in that extreme circumstance where we win 2/3 of our games, not very likely, guys. Even in that extreme circumstance, you're probably not catching like Atlanta for the 9th worst record. So we are safe where we are. And even when you talk about those extreme differences, let's talk about we go 2-24 and we end up with the 5th worst record. Okay, if you have the 5th worst record, going into the draft lottery, you have a 10.5% chance of getting the top pick and a 42% chance at getting a top 4 pick. Those are good, pretty good odds, relatively. But let's flip it around and say the best case scenario or worst case scenario if you want to tank. Let's say we win tons and tons of games. We end up with the 8th worst record. Let's say we catch and pass the Raptors and the Nets and the Hawks. Well, we still are probably going to have a 6% chance at the top pick and a 26% chance at the top 4 pick. So in those extremes, losing out or winning out, you're only talking about going from a 10.5% chance at the top pick to a 6% chance, or a 40% chance at a top 4 pick to a 26% chance at a top 4 pick. So it's a blessing, I think, that we don't have to worry about those standings. We can just play our guys. If Desmond Bane is healthy enough to play basketball, you can play him. If you want to cheer for your team to win, which, oh, by the way, is the point of sports, you can do it guilt-free. You don't have to be a weirdo explaining to your buddy who's happy that we won, actually, hey, man, winning's bad. We need to improve our lottery odds. They flattened the lottery odds. They did that as an anti-tanking measure. All of that was a very long-winded way to say, and hopefully a convincing way to say, let's just go out and try to win basketball games. There's no downside. Personally, I think there's an upside. I believe that allowing our players to play together benefits you in the future. Allowing Vince Williams Jr. and Gigi Jackson to get more reps in games that somewhat matter. I mean, they don't super matter, but like, I think beating the Bucks last Thursday, I think that helps the team going forward. I mean, maybe there is no carryover from season to season. Maybe that's something we've all invented as sports fans, but I think it could help them. But again, the big issue or the big topic that I want us to focus on is there's no difference. If you tank out, or even if you try to win every game and you play all your players who are healthy, you're not really going to hurt your draft position. So let's just go win some basketball games. Now, on that draft night, I think one of the interesting things is, what happens to the Grizzlies as far as, do they keep the pick? Do they trade the pick? And this has been a topic of conversation for a while now. And I've been on the side of, I'd probably want to keep the pick. This is a top 10 pick we did not know we were going to get. Maybe you can get a franchise-changing player. Maybe you can just get someone who's the perfect 4th banana to your current core of Ja and Desmond and Jaren. And Zach Kleiman was saying, the decision tree starts with where that draft pick ends up. And if maybe it jumps into the top 4, you can trade it for somebody. But even if it stays where it's at, which, by the way, is going to be most likely the 7th or 8th pick. Statistically, that's the most likely outcome for the Grizzlies. Even if they tank, or even if they win a bunch of games, we're going to be somewhere around there. There's like a 50% chance we pick 7th or 8th. I think the interesting thing now for the Grizzlies is to try to wonder, what can we get for the 7th pick? What if we decide, you know what? A 7th pick, is that 7th pick going to help us win a title next year or the year after? Is that 7th pick, or the player we take with the 7th pick, is that person going to help us win a playoff series next year or the following year? And you might say no. And maybe odds are that no, that player's not going to help you win a playoff series next year. So you start thinking, what can we get then? What player could we acquire with that 7th pick and maybe with something else that would help us win a playoff series next year? And there is one trade that I focused on. And I think when we look at these trades, we have to keep in mind that we're probably not trading for an all-star. And at the very least, with our restrictions that we have with our roster's salary and with the salary cap, and with trying to stay under the second apron, which basically every team tries to do, paying for an all-star is unlikely. I mean, maybe we could. Like, you think about what the Grizzlies' best offer could be on draft night, would be like Marcus Smart and Luke Kennard or Zaire or whatever, plus the 7th pick, plus 2 or 3 future first-round picks, which is something the Grizzlies could offer. That's enough to bring back an all-star. Who that player would be, who knows? But you then run into the problem, are they going to pay a 4th player who makes more than $30 million? I mean, it's also interesting when you think about like Jeremy Grant, who technically is not an all-star. But like Jeremy Grant, you could probably get him for the 7th pick. I mean, maybe you could. You know, you'd have to match that salary. Like, would you trade, maybe the Trailblazers could reroute Marcus Smart to a contender and get more for him. But like Marcus Smart plus the 7th pick for Jeremy Grant, and then maybe you get even something back there. I mean, would you do that? It would make you better next year and the year after, the 2 years that we still have Jaren under contract. So like, these are the kind of things I'm thinking about, but I'm not focused as much on guys who make as much money as Jeremy Grant. For this episode, and for the purposes of what I'm thinking the Grizzlies could trade for, I'm trying to find guys who have mid-size salaries who I think are good players who could help you win right now. And I'm defining basically a mid-size salary is someone making like $15 million or less, because I think those are feasible, attainable guys. I don't think the 7th pick is going to shake free, you know, name your player, Mikal Bridges or Jaylen Brown, people who we fantasized about in years past. I don't think that's possible. I do think using the 7th pick or some combination of your future first-round picks could get you a helpful player. And the guy I focused on is Onyeka Okongwu for the Hawks. The reason is, and something similar about his salary and the guys I'm going to look at, I'm going to offer a few other names, is just because he's already signed an extension and it's relatively cheap. Okongwu has a 4-year, $62 million extension that starts next season. He's super young. The Hawks probably don't want to trade him because he's a very good young player on a good contract. But what if you offered them the 7th pick? What if they come to the realization that, hey, we've kind of capped out where we are? There's even rumors about like Trae Young, a clutch client, maybe getting traded to the Lakers for a big haul of whatever the Lakers can offer, which doesn't feel like that big of a haul. But if the Hawks pivot into more of a rebuild, or if they just say, hey, we're going to build around DeJounte Murray, I mean, frankly, they would probably build around DeJounte Murray, Jalen Johnson, and Okongwu. But if you offer them the 7th pick, or if you offer them the 7th pick and a future first, I feel like they're listening. The deal I would make, the offer I would put out there, I would offer them the first and, you know, a future first probably. I would say like a top 10 protected on that future first. But I'm going to offer them the 7th pick or the 8th pick, whatever it ends up being this season, a future first, the matching salary, you know, probably Luke Kennard, and throw in Zaire or Conchar or something. I'm trying to get Okongwu back. I'm also trying to get back Saddiq Bey. Saddiq Bey is going to be a restricted free agent. Saddiq Bey is an erratic shooter. His 3-point numbers are kind of hideous. But I like Saddiq Bey. I think he fits very well on this Grizzlies team. He can be your starting 3, or if you want to start Marcus Smart or Vince Williams Jr., he can be a backup 3. He can also play small ball 4. He also, in my estimation, he's got great feel for the game of basketball, something some of our guys don't have. He's also a plus rebounder for his position. He's a floor spacer. He's a plus rebounder. He's a 3-and-D guy. I would try to get him also in this deal. Okongwu and Sadiq Bey added to this team for next year, I think makes you likely to get out of the first round, and it might maximize how good your team can be in the next 2 seasons. The fact that Okongwu is a similar age to Jaren, they can age together. Their fit, basketball-wise, seems perfect. Okongwu actually can make a few corner threes. He's a better three-point shooter than like Xavier Tillman. But he's a shot blocker, he's a rebounder, he's a lob finisher who can also defend on the perimeter. That differentiates him, in my mind, from like a Daniel Gafford. Maybe Daniel Gafford's a better overall player. He's looked amazing on the Mavericks since joining them after the trade deadline. But I think Okongwu is maybe the best option of a player you can get. Whether or not that offer is good enough for the Hawks, who knows? Like the other guys I would think about who have similar salaries, again, I'm looking at guys who are signed through the next 2 seasons at least, preferably longer, and are making under $15 million a year. The other guys who fit those parameters, who also I think would be good fits on your roster, would be a guy like Herb Jones, Denny Avdia, Aaron Nesmith, Wendell Carter Jr. Now, are any of those guys worth the 7th pick? That's a solid debate. I mean, would you trade the 7th pick for Herb Jones? I think when you consider maybe your title window, you might consider it. I don't love it. I would probably rather hope for the upside of a draft pick, but I think those are the more feasible trades. Even if you don't include your 7th pick, I think this is your shopping list, though, for guys who you might want to trade future firsts for. Like, how many future firsts, if I can top 10 protect them, for Herb Jones, for Denny Avdia, for Aaron Nesmith, for even Naz Reid. So the Timberwolves have these massive salary concerns going forward. They actually signed, or they just agreed to an extension with Mike Conley. Mike Conley keeps getting paid. Congratulations to him. Good job by the Timberwolves locking up Mike Conley, a 2-year, $21 million extension. I know some Grizzlies fans had this fantasy that Mike Conley was coming home for a cheap salary. That was a fantasy. For a team that has Desmond Bane and Marcus Smart and Ja Morant and also Luke Kennard, maybe, you're not spending a roster spot on Mike Conley. You're definitely not paying him. But Mike Conley signing an extension with the Timberwolves, they can't keep everybody. They're not going to keep everybody. Naz Reid, who they signed last year in the offseason, would be a great fit on the Grizzlies. They probably would take a first-round pick or 2 for Naz Reid this offseason. Is that worth it? That's where I think you can have a healthy debate about whether or not it's worth it. But I think Naz Reid would be a target. After this season, he has 2 more years on his deal. So like Wendell Carter Jr., same thing. We talked about him before. Some other players who I'm not that interested in that I've seen mentioned for the Grizzlies, these are bigs who are under contract. They're Isaiah Stewart and Jared Vanderbilt. I don't think Isaiah Stewart is that good. I think 4 years, $60 million is a bit pricey for him. I think the fit is solid, but I don't love it. And I can't imagine what exactly you would give up for him. Jared Vanderbilt, non-shooter. So I'm not that interested in having like a hustle guy, even if his salary is pretty good. But the most interesting things to me, and the target I've identified the most, is finding that starting front court player alongside Jaren and seeing if Okongwu is available. It's possible he's not available at all. If I'm the Hawks, I don't think I would give him up. Unless, of course, you think the 7th pick and another future first is something you could sell to your fan base. Like, it's been weird that, like, Capella has still always started over Okongwu. He went through his entire 4-year rookie contract as the backup. So maybe they're not that high on him. Maybe I'm too high on him. There's always a chance of that. But that there is the sort of trade that the Grizzlies could make on draft night that I think would set them up very nicely for a win now circumstance where they say, we don't care about whoever the 7th pick, if it's Ron Holland or somebody else. I don't know these draft picks at all. I just pulled the one name I could think of that wasn't, in consideration for the top pick. But like, if you think for the Grizzlies, we have to win these next 2 years, let's make a deal. That would be, I think, my number one target. Now, if you do want to make one of those huge deals, if you want to put together that like best case or the strongest offer we can make, which is probably Marcus Smart and Kennard plus like 3 firsts, I would love to know the targets you guys are thinking about. Maybe I can't even dream that big. By the way, one thing I thought was interesting talking about other Grizzlies news or considering the draft night potential for a trade. On the Hollinger and Duncan podcast, both Nate Duncan and John Hollinger figured the Grizzlies would try to trade Luke Kennard on draft night, and if not, would likely decline his option. I thought that was interesting because I feel like in the Grizzlies bubble, most of us are thinking, oh yeah, we'll just exercise his team option and bring him back. And both Hollinger and Duncan were like, yeah, he's not. They don't think he's that good. They think he can't stay healthy, and they think he's overpriced. And with the Grizzlies' tax concerns, they're like, that's an easy turn down. No, thank you. Maybe we bring you back on a much lower salary, or we just try to get enough under the tax where we can use our full MLE on someone. And if you did that, you could move on from Kennard. I just thought that was interesting to hear the perspective of other NBA analysts who aren't in the deep Grizzlies bubble. Anyways, final things. As the Grizzlies come out of the All-Star break, of course, we're having that watch party on Friday night in Nashville, 7 p.m. That's Friday, February 23rd at 7 p.m. The Grizzlies, after that, play the Nets on Monday, and those are the last two Jacob Gilyard games. I mean, it's possible he's not active for those games if other players are healthy. I am actually guessing he would not be active, but the decision on Jacob Gilyard is nigh. I will be interested to see exactly what they do there. And with that, I think we can shut it down. Anyways, thanks everybody for listening. If you want to support this program, if you want to join the Slack channel where we talk about the Grizzlies and everything else around the clock, you can do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. That also gets you exclusive bonus episodes talking about the general NBA and Grizzlies things. So if that appeals to you, maybe check out patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right. Hope you guys have a great Tuesday. I will talk to you soon. Go Grizz.